In today's Farm Report, the Environmental Protection Agency is set to release its overdue 2014 volume requirements for ethanol and this year's numbers in 2 weeks, and the ethanol industry is putting the push on lawmakers to show what the situation stands on.
The ethanol industry is asking the Obama administration to choose between the oil industry and consumers when it comes to setting volume obligations under the Renewable Fuel Standard. Fuels America this week launched a major Washington, D.C. media campaign that Renewable Fuels Association President and CEO Bob Dinneen says communicates the choice to be made.
We intend to make sure that the administrator, members of Congress, and the President himself understands the very clear choice that will be made with this impending RVO decision. American innovation or oil industry profits. Low-carbon fuels or fracking. Value-added markets for farmers and jobs across rural America or imports. A sustainable energy future or a return to the failed energy policies of the past. It seems like a pretty clear choice.
Advanced Ethanol Council Executive Director Brooke Coleman says if the oil industry succeeds in pressuring EPA to lower the volume obligations, it will effectively stifle continued advancement in next-generation biofuels.
This is exactly what the oil industry is fighting. Just like you saw exponential growth in the corn ethanol industry after the early years and much more choice at the pump, and very quickly ethanol replaced MTBE and moved into the marketplace in a very, very expeditious way. You're starting to see exponential growth in this isoelastic biofuel space. And so what this fight is really all about, while they frame it as a corn ethanol issue, is really about the 21 billion gallons that are still in the RFS that are predominantly advanced biofuels.
Both Dinneen and Coleman expressed confidence that EPA will release the overdue volume obligations for 2014 and 2015 by June 1st, as agreed to by court order. But Dinneen says the industry has had no indication from EPA on what they might be.
They've not been very communicative on where they are, but I ultimately think this is probably not something that EPA will decide. While it will be their rule, and they'll have to be comfortable, whatever it is, this is really the White House's call.
Reporting for AgriPulse, I'm Cindy Zimmerman.
Just out, the results of a survey of honeybee colony losses over this past year, and the numbers not good. Now, if you look at losses over this past winter, 23% of the managed colonies in the U.S. were lost. That would be a decrease, though, from the year before of 0.6%.
Unfortunately, the summer figures exceeded the winter figures.
Jeff Pettis runs the Agriculture Department's Bee Research Lab in Maryland. Losses last summer, 27.4% of colonies, which was just over 7.5% more than summer the year before. So add the winter and summer colony losses together, and this country's beekeepers lost over 42% of their colonies in just 1 year's time.
This is about a 10-point increase annual loss from last year,
making it the second worst year on record for bee losses.
To me, it points how complicated honeybee health is, and that we need to attack it on a number of fronts,
including better bee nutrition, coming up with better controls of bee parasites, and reducing bee exposure to pesticides. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Washington.
The House and Senate moved on Trade Promotion Authority, or TPA, helping egg interests push for free trade agreements in other nations, which opens the door for more U.S. egg products. Cindy Zimmerman with AgriPulse has more.
Agricultural interests in favor of Trade Promotion Authority are cautiously optimistic that the Senate will have enough votes to move it forward this week. National Council of Farmer Cooperatives President and former Deputy Secretary of Agriculture Chuck Connor says there is no question it will be difficult getting Congress to pass TPA.
We had a strong approval in both the Senate Finance and the Ways and Means Committees. I think we'll get strong approval coming out of the Senate. Then we'll have to go to the House of Representatives and get approval in the full House. And that has always been where the problem occurs in Trade Promotion Authority debates. And that dates back, clear to the Ronald Reagan years. The House vote, on TPA is going to be a 1 or 2 margin vote. And that's, always been the case. This one will be no different, in my opinion. And it always has a strange relationship during Democratic presidencies where they're relying upon Republicans to deliver in some cases as much as 90% of the votes, for that kind of thing. And that's again going to be the case with this TPA debate in the House, and it's going to be very, very close.
Dave Warner with the National Pork Producers Council is optimistic about getting TPA passed because it's so important to moving negotiations forward on pending trade agreements.
It'll be tough, but I think that the TPA will pass. It might be pretty close, but I think in the end that most lawmakers will look at free trade agreements, which are the best way for us to grow our economy, grow U.S. jobs. I know that there are critics of trade, and overall we have a huge trade deficit. But if you look at the 20 countries we have free trade agreements with versus the other 176 countries in the world that we trade with, there's no comparison. Free trade agreements are what get us to export more to those other countries. Our trade deficit is next to nothing with the countries we have free trade agreements with, and it's $750 billion with the countries we don't have free trade agreements with. So obviously, free trade agreements work for getting more of our product to other countries, and we need to do that to grow our economy and create U.S. jobs.
Reporting for AgriPulse, I'm Cindy Zimmerman.
The USDA is making $30 million available to farmers and ranchers to develop new product lines. Cindy Zimmerman with AgriPulse has more.
USDA is making $30 million available to farmers, ranchers, and food entrepreneurs to develop new product lines through the Value-Added Producer Grant Program.
Farmers and ranchers are those creative people who live out in rural America, and with just a little bit of help from us can put that creativity to work and make sure that they can add value to the rural communities by improving the bottom line of their operations. These value-added producer grants help them develop new product lines to grow their businesses.
Rural Business Cooperative Service Administrator Lillian Salerno talks about how the 2014 Farm Bill has helped with funding for value-added producer grants.
We've had this program since 2009 and have awarded over $104.5 million to 853 different grants. But what the Farm Bill did, it really increased the opportunities for folks by increasing the amount of money that we have to give out, and also added some priorities to take advantage of this creative way to increase value in rural communities by making sure that military veterans and socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers got special priority in the new provisions granted in the Farm Bill.
Salerno gives some examples of value-added producer grants.
We granted a value-added producer grant to Lori Joe's Southern Style Canning in Georgia. It was a small family-owned and operated business that was looking for opportunities to grow their business. And with the money that we awarded, the grant assisted the company in paying for and processing the marketing costs of their pepper jelly products. And their pepper jelly products are shipped all over the world now because of this value-added producer grant, which allowed them to do increased processing marketing. We have another example from Calderon Produce in North Carolina. They're a family-owned and operated business, and the Calderons came to the U.S. in 1985 and were migrant farm workers who sold produce out of the back of their box van. And through the years, they saved their money, raised a family, and bought about 100 acres of land in Vail, North Carolina. And they were looking for a branding opportunity in which they could label their produce. And the value-added producer grant that we awarded helped them develop a marketing plan so that they could sell their tomatoes, peppers, and cucumbers as food safety certified, which helped them increase their market share.
Grant applications will be accepted through July 2nd electronically or July 7th by mail. Reporting for AgriPulse, I'm Cindy Zimmerman.